Great. Hi, everyone. So probably most of you actually don't know me because I'm relatively new in the Solana ecospace. I'm Dante, or that's how you would know me, core contributor for Jet and also DAO advisor. And basically today what I would like to talk about and walk you through a little bit is Jet's there we go, yeah. Jet's journey through a DAO. So if we look at the actual flight plan, let's say, it's pretty much the same as building the DAO. So we have the booking phase where you basically need to get to know what your destination is. So we're going to speak a little bit of what is a DAO. It's quite a open topic when it comes, an open definition when it comes to the space. Then how do we bootstrap a DAO from the very beginning? What would be the main operating system of the DAO, so the governance? Then the scaling and the challenges that we've seen in Jet, that we also have seen in other protocols, lessons learned from there. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview how Jet is managing this, and then open up for questions to the group. By the way, during the presentation, if anyone wants to ask a question, also just feel free to interrupt me. No need to wait for the end. So what is a DAO, right? That's, I think we've had a couple of conversations today already on what kind of DAOs there are, what do we mean by a DAO. Is a DAO just a multi-sig governance platform? Is a DAO something more? We have NFTs DAO, we've got, let's say, DAOs with governance. This is something that, again, is a very, very open topic when it comes to, I think, all the blockchains. So if we actually look at what DAO is, just from the technical standpoint, decentralized autonomous organization, right? So what is decentralized? Very open as well, but in general, no person to go to, a lot of teams that are without any potentially legal entity or without any centralized government, at least, governed by a protocol. When it's autonomous, we've got teams that are working, everyone pretty much on what they want to work and how they want to work it. Nobody is forcing them to do anything. The decisions are independent. If there are token holders, they're usually mandating anything, but we cannot forget that it's an organization as well, right? So as we've heard today in the morning as well, a DAO needs to, let's say, put together like-minded people that at least are going in the same direction and working together towards the same goal. So if we actually sum it up, a DAO would be a structure that supports three main pillars, and that decentralized work, decentralized capital, and workforce. So what we do, how we pay for it, and basically who does the job. But I think the most important thing to actually remember about the DAOs, and that's a tribute to our legal counsel, it's a process. I mean, DAO is not black or white. It's a spectrum, it's a process, it's a process, it's a process. So we cannot say that A is a DAO, B is not a DAO because of X, Y, Z. It usually goes across, different stages and different maturity levels. So, bootstrapping a DAO. Usually when you start, this is more or less how your DAO looks like. So you have a core team, which is quite strong. That core team has an idea, has a vision. They are working on a product, on a protocol, trying to find this product market fit to actually establish themselves. You have somehow community over there starting to get engaged, starting to build, interacting with the core teams. Token holders hanging out there, if there are any, having a look into what's going on and whether they are going to be involved more in the coming days or weeks or months, most probably. And then the funds and the treasury usually comes from the core team. Let's say it's under the management of the core team. comes with the investors, comes with the initial coin offering, whatever we've got there, but it's pretty centralized. So a lot of, not everyone, but a lot of projects actually start there, let's say, when we talk about a DAO. If we look at Jet, that's basically their main infrastructure. So they also started, or we started with the suite of DeFi products and services. So for those of you that don't know, Jet is a lending and borrowing platform. Started with the basic, let's say, lending and borrowing products. About to launch the V2, quite exciting stuff. So stay tuned for that, for the fixed interest product. But that was the first, let's say, push. So to build the protocol, to make it run, and to actually push it down the DAO road. Jet token is the other thing, and actually what Jet is doing is we are putting together the token and the tokenomics with the whole governance idea. So you need to stake your tokens in order to be able to vote. There was also an airdrop done not long back, like very recently, which was the idea to bring more people to Jet, to reward also those contributors that were working on the protocol and testing it, both mainnet and devnet, but also to bring the community to grow that governance space, let's say, to start with. And this legal and conceptual framework for the governance is actually on the very, very top of Jet and on the very top of their agenda to go towards the DAO, right? Towards decentralization. So if you look at DAO at scale, when we talk about the DAO that is based on the tokens, and you can see that in a lot of DAOs, if you look into Ethereum, for example, you've got probably one of the biggest ones is MakerDAO. What you have is the protocol stays there, everything is governed by the protocol. The treasury sits in the protocol, usually getting revenues from the users. But then you have a very, very strong community that actually makes proposals towards the protocol. So whatever change, whatever idea is out there, that comes from the community and it passes through the governance. So here the governance can mean a lot of things, can be structured in a lot of different ways. But the main idea is that everything is voted on-chain and the decisions are binding by the vote from the governance. And then you've got those independent units that are working towards hopefully the same goal, but they're being mandated from the governance as well. And whatever is being voted is being executed with the protocol. So the one thing that changes from the beginning, from bootstrapping to where the DAO is actually at scale, and that is quite hard to navigate around, is you might not have any more the vision that you started with. So the core team might find themselves with the idea that actually their idea is not there anymore because the DAO is a living organism. They do basically whatever the community thinks is best and whatever the token holders, whatever direction they go for. One of the big challenges then at scale is the sustainability. So how do we make this work without central authority, without people actually telling us what to do? And then, as I said, the centralized team, very, very hard to navigate around and very decentralized. So another challenge in there, and we'll have a look at it in a bit as well. So to actually make all of that happen, so go from bootstrapping to scaling, governance. Governance is pretty much what you would say an operating system, and it's not only of the DAO, so this is not something new. If we look at traditional organizations, what they have is always system of rules, practices, processes, how are those rules being enforced, how are things being done, how are decisions made. Like, it's nothing new. We see that in normal organizations, in the, let's say, normal world. And it's what the governance is trying to reproduce for the DAOs as well. A little bit of a guidance of how to navigate the decentralized world. So if you look at centralized organization. That's pretty clear. We've got that executive team on top that in the end is finally responsible for the decision. There's a top and middle management, and then there are those, the people actually doing the work based on the directed execution, let's say direction from this executive level. When you move to the DAO, from what we've seen up until now working with different protocols, middle management and top management pretty much disappears. So there is no one to coordinate between executive team, which would be or not even executive team, actually it would be the shareholders pretty much, which are the token holders, and the actual people who do the work. So it's all autonomous execution. You go through voters or delegates, and then there is this new circle over there that actually, probably if you talked to me like a couple of months ago, it wouldn't be here. But one thing that we've been realizing more and more is that for this to work, you need to have transparency and quality control across the whole system. Because otherwise there's no flow in information. And again, those guys in the bottom don't really know how to work with the voters, how to work with the people who actually hold the ownership of the DAO. So, Jet, how do we kind of tackle the governance with, in Jet, there are a lot of different things, so a lot of different elements. One of the main ones that we're developing is the JDAP framework, so JDAO advancement proposals. Those are, this is a type of documentation that defines the rules, right? It defines the way how you can interact with a DAO, how you can bring up new ideas. So one of the examples here is, the first one that we have is, sorry, maybe I can, well, I'll come to it later, but the first one that we have is our asset onboarding. So what we do have is the process for that. What we do have for that is like a template where projects can go and say, okay, I would like to onboard a new asset on Jet. If you would like to do that, then please give us all that information that you need to fill in a standardized way in order for the community to actually be able to find their way around it. So it's community driven. Both the proposals themselves can be filled in by the community, as well as the changes to that templates that we are developing. It's also something that we want community to work on. So if somebody wants to say, okay, now we want to create the core teams, you can come in and say, okay, this is how we are going to do it. This is my proposal on how this should be done, or how the other people can propose it. Go on and discuss it on community, put it up for a vote. If the token holders are happy with it, it goes in and it gets executed. And it's also permissionless. So it's open pretty much to anyone. Anyone can interact with the DAO, anyone can propose, and anyone can bring their ideas in. For the governance process, Jet has 2 steps, let's say. So one is, the first step is off-chain discussion on the forums. So you need to convince first the community that your idea is valid. We do run a community poll for most of the proposals to get the feeling of how our community is actually looking at the proposal. And then once this is done, there is the on-chain voting, which is actually binding. And here, the proposals that are considered valid or that are considered value-adding, they go up for the vote by Jet token holders. This is we are using the realms actually for the Jet Govern app. With a bit of a spin on it. So there are some features, let's say, that we added on top of it. Everything is open source. That's why there's a QR code here that you can go to with our GitHub documentation. Actually, feel free to check it out and find any bugs or any improvements. Happy to hear about it. But the Jet Govern basically got launched not that long ago, actually just a few days back, and we're running our first vote very, very soon. So the first vote actually that is coming up asset onboarding. It's a little bit of a test vote. We are going to actually vote on an asset that already is on the platform, so a bit of a cheating there on USDC. But in preparation for that, what we did is we do have the whole onboarding guide, so how the process is actually going to look like for the voting, for the evaluation. We have the full process mapped out. Documentation, and everything that we're hearing quite often from our legal folks. The other thing that we have is we have the JetDAO specifically for asset onboarding. This is again all posted on our forum as well and in our documentation. And what we added, which is maybe not very standard yet, for all the DAOs, or not very standard in general, is we have like an evaluation guideline. We call it specifically for collaterals codex, so collateral onboarding domain evaluation criteria. So we tell the community exactly how that their asset is going to be evaluated, like with which kind of criteria and what kind of levels do we expect the assets to meet or the projects to meet in order to be considered potential asset for Jet. All right, and then finally, what are the challenges around DAO? I think we've heard quite a lot about it already from the speakers today and yesterday as well. Legal setup, first one. So coming back to the discussion from today in the morning, how do you manage within a DAO a liability? How do we make sure that people are not personally liable for their decisions? How do we make sure that they actually, that there is no financial repercussions for participating in the DAO? Taxes and accounting is something both for the DAO and for the individual contributors that is a big question mark as well. So, yes? Yeah. There you go. So why it's not illegal? Why does it need to be regulated? Because you, as a contributor, are regulated, and that's the big thing. That's a big problem of, let's say, connecting the DAOs to the real world, because the work that the DAO is doing can be decentralized. You might not have any entity in there, but if you're working for a DAO, you will be expecting to get paid. You will probably be expecting to be able to invoice something out there. And that's why actually a lot of that doesn't exist. Exactly. So usually what the different DAOs are approaching it in a different way. But for example, Jet, what they are doing right now, because we are still starting, there is an association set up in Switzerland, which is a legal wrapper for the DAO. It's a non-profit, no-brainer. That's the easiest, I think, solution out there. And it is right now representing the whole DAO. But if you move to the actual DAOs, again, I'll use the example of Maker because they've been most advanced in that. They started with a foundation, they dissolved the foundation, and then it was up to the core units to set up their own, let's say, legal structure. So some of them go through companies that actually employ people on their behalf. Some of them incorporate, some of them do partnerships. In the end, you will have, and I think that's important, you will have that legal structure in place. It won't be centralized. That's I think the main thing. And that's also the discussion about efficiency and redundancy in a DAO, right? That's why we want to have more than one team that is doing the same thing, because in the end, those teams probably will have some legal attachment to a regulation and to a government. So if you stop one, the other one is going to keep on working. And then if you stop one, you can also, let's say, rebuild it and start it from scratch, and the whole DAO doesn't collapse because of it. But the local regulations are actually pretty, let's say, important here. From Jet, we had a quick experience with that when we launched the token, and we couldn't serve, or we decided not to serve US customers because of the securities law. So one of the things that we build on top of the realms is an SMS check, which basically checks where the user is being located so that we don't serve the US market.
Because I will say, as an association, you have an advantage. Let's say I don't know, an American citizen can have frequent flyer miles of Lufthansa. If you are a corporation or a company, you have problems. But an association, and if your token is utility, this is the best. This is the way to go.
Yeah.
You can accept US citizens as long as you can explain why the token is utility. You're doing it right, and the case is not in crypto. A simple example, as an American guy, maybe he has frequent flyer miles of Japan Airlines or Lufthansa, and that's exactly the same.
Yeah, it was actually a discussion to see if we do risk that, because it's still a bit of a gray zone outside because it's all so new. We've got a really cool guy inside. Yeah, I'll connect him with you then, because I think he'll be more than happy to exchange the knowledge there.
Sorry for stealing this one.
Now go for it.
Sorry for stealing time. Yeah. We as BCB, we own a bank in Germany, a bank in Switzerland, 240 employees, half of them or more are lawyers, compliance.
Yeah.
But I agree, this is the way to go.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. I think it's in the end, it's a bit of a just to be safe, on the safe side when we start, because it's also, you never know whether your token will be 100% seen as utility, or whether actually someone will raise a hand and say, no, guys, this is a security. You're not doing the utility stuff because of X, Y, Z. So launching with this idea, but again, the Swiss Association is, let's say, the mechanism for us to, at least at the beginning, and then we don't know actually how is that going to develop in the future. Is it going to stay? Is it going to, like in case of Maker, be dissolved? But the idea is that for now, in order to launch the DAO, to launch the protocol, to protect our, let's say, people and our holders and everything, that's the mechanism to go for. And actually, because a lot of people raise a hand and say, oh, but you have an association, then it's not decentralized. Or how do you make sure, because there's, of course, a governance body in there that is actually making the decisions. But we did work on it quite specifically with our legal counsel as well, that inside of the association papers, there is actually a piece saying that whatever the governance decides, that's the binding vote and the binding thing that we do need to execute in the protocol. So it is built in. The idea is that it will be as decentralized as it can be and as fast as it can be, let's say. But here we also have, of course, those operational challenges, as I mentioned. Who do you invoice? How do you invoice? Can you have, let's say, the benefits that you would have in a normal company? Not that much in a DAO. The second one that we've faced a lot is the governance maturity. So as we said, the governance is the core, it's the heart of a DAO, but how do you actually make it work? So how do you make people be engaged? How do you handle spam in the proposals? So we've got, you might, once your community is quite mature, they are educated, they know what you're doing, they follow you, but at the beginning, usually it's kind of like, and as you grow actually and scale, a lot of times you also get people who buy your token just thinking that, it's going to be a nice investment and a nice return on it, but they actually don't know what the projects are about and what the proposals are about. So here we have, with what Jet is doing, again, as a first step towards decentralization, we did put in place what we call a governance committee. So these are two Jet core members, and then for now 2 people from outside of Jet from the community, but thinking about actually growing it more. And the governance committee has a role of filtering and gatekeeping the proposals. So they are the ones doing first evaluation of everything that comes in. Following, again, and that's why the codec that I talked about is super important, because following the criteria that are fully transparent to the community, so it's not that the governance committee can do whatever they want and then say, no, I don't like you guys, you're not going in. Fully transparent, but we do have those domain experts going through the proposal and making sure that this is actually healthy, this is moving the protocol in the right direction, and that we are not spamming the token holders with basically silly proposals that that might actually be also potentially harmful or endangering the security of the whole protocol. So that's the one way to manage, let's say, this first piece. And then in the future, and also again we've seen that in most more advanced DAOs, you might opt for this delegate structure, where you delegate your votes to a group of people that are, let's say, or to a specific person that are more versed in the project, in the DAO, in the direction of the DAO. They collaborate in between each other in order to make sure that actually the votes are cast in the best possible way. Not the case of Jet yet. We don't have the maturity for it, but definitely something that will be on the radar for the future. Next one around growth. So how do you actually grow the whole DAO, the whole protocol with the centralized way? So here it's more, and it's coming back as well to this like, okay, core team versus independent teams, middle management versus nobody out there. How do you make sure that the direction is the same, that we're not losing the vision, that people just don't do whatever they feel like doing? How do we control that? How do we make sure that actually value is being contributed? And then typical questions: what do we do next? What challenge do we tackle? What direction should we take? So again, not yet something that Jet has in place, but grants are actually on our list for Q4 this year. Really good way to let people, let's say, go in and propose things and try to work on projects and on ideas without actually having to pass all of them through the vote, which is a bit more of a slower process. So that's one of the ways to do it. And the other way is if you run, for example, an incubation program, which is also something we're thinking about, to guide anyone new. So if you have a new idea and you want to contribute to the JetDAO and you want to be, let's say, a unit, a core team in there, the idea of the incubation program is that there is a group of people that helps you from the core team at this moment, that helps you out, that guides you, that gives you the tools, that gives you the understanding of the DAO. And then it's much, much easier to get incorporated into the ecosystem and to actually keep the ecosystem aligned. Again, as you scale, the more people, the more teams, the more important this piece actually is, and the more helpful that incubation program could be. Money, another big one. How do you know how much you should charge a DAO? Or how do you know how much your work is actually worth? From the DAO perspective, do we know if a translator A is charging us $50 per hour and translator B 30, which one is the one that actually makes the right numbers? How do rewarding work? I know we have actually, I think we have another talk about this one. Very, very interesting as well for me to listen to. Capital allocation, again, in a DAO, it's all about, we make a proposal, it passes, there is a budget, it passes, and the protocol just assigns the budget. But then, does that really make sense? Some teams in some DAOs get a ridiculous amount of money for doing pretty much nothing, or just waving their flag and saying, hey, we're here, and doing 2 videos per year. So really big challenge around there. Tracking of costs, reconciliating those costs. So I did say that I need that much money. Did I use that money for what I actually said that I was going to use it for? Did I need more? Did I need less, etc.? So here, one of the things that, and it's borrowing it from, unfortunately, the good old bad corporations, we are looking into the budgeting process. So actually set up a proper budgeting structure and framework where the teams and the contributors have a set of guidelines, let's say, of guiding principles, that they don't go all over the place pretty much with what they do, and that they also need to, in some way, report back. And that some way is also an open point of how do we do that, through dashboards, through some kind of more centralized, probably, and a little bit more, hopefully, automated way, tracking of all of that, all of those expenses. Sir. Also, yeah, which is actually it's one of the things that that some DAOs, some teams do, that they work with. I think there's, for example, a company in the Philippines called Accountable, that they will invoice you in the crypto, and then they will pay to your contributors in whichever currency they would like. So it's one of the things that can be used. Yeah, Philippines. You can do anything in the Philippines. There you go. More open. I think more and more countries actually opening up for that, and it's yeah. And we're looking crypto like crypto, but we're looking actually some of the countries are now opening also their like tax benefits when you make your income in crypto. So I think more and more people actually might want to earn in stable coins, for example. Because when we talk about crypto, yeah, let's not forget that it's not only the highly volatile ones, but we do have stable coins for that purpose. Hopefully more stable than the Luna. And the last one, last but not least, performance. This is very much in the roadmap. On Jet, we're not there yet. The bigger DAOs are definitely there. Again, going back to Maker, one of the biggest struggle there. How do you make this whole big world of 300, 400, 500 people all over the world actually work together, collaborate and compete at the same time? And then when we talk about DAOs, it always comes up saying, no, but we're not going for efficiency. Like we don't want to be efficient, we want to be resilient, we want to be redundant. But we forget that efficiency is not only about duplicated work. It's also about wasting time, it's also about right communication, right distribution of information, knowledge sharing, etc. So that's the last, let's say, point that is coming our way in Jet. If anyone has already some kind of ideas of how to tackle that or is managing it right now, very happy to discuss and to get some input from anyone. But this is the one thing that we're not looking forward to, probably. Okay, so just to wrap up, keep an eye on Jet. I think we're doing quite cool stuff, to be honest, both from the perspective of the product. When it comes to the code library, everything is open source, as we said. So you can basically go through our Immunify bug bounty program, contribute, start to converse. Please get involved. I mean, you guys are awesome, so we need that powerhouse collaborating with us. Thank you.